Hello there, you're watching the polls on the Joy News channel. Coming up this afternoon, business communities warning of imminent job losses and a massive shutdown of private businesses if government fails to hold a dialogue immediately on how to sustain businesses in the wake of new revenue measures passed by Parliament.
These businesses are already overburdened with numerous taxes. Therefore, the implementation of these new taxes will lead to the collapse of businesses in the country.
More persons are weighing in, including business magnate Sam Jonah, who's warning government against taking policy measures that will go against the private sector.
It is crucial that we take decisions with empathy and a keen understanding of the impact of our actions on the lives of our citizens.
Also this afternoon, we're paying attention to politics. The governing New Patriotic Party is accusing the National Democratic Congress of deliberately embarking on a campaign of misinformation as the NPP is defending its track record. We'll hear from the party chairperson who's been addressing Ghanaians on what they term is the true state of the economy.
As it turned out, the NDC as a party are not just incompetent managers of Ghana's, but also incompetent researchers.
More from the New Patriotic Party shortly, and later on Connect Africa, we're taking you to Rwanda. President Paul Kagame's governing party is celebrating their 35th anniversary. We'll get you the latest from Rwanda. It's all coming up here on the poll.
Reference make in different parts of the world how things have happened. So that means the what to an extent has been answered.
We have these and more coming your way here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Digni Lu Affordable Safe Sanitation. We're on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. I am Blessed Sogah. We're back shortly with the details. And this afternoon, JoyNews is learning that Ghana's external debt exchange program appears to be hanging in the balance, given the fact that Ghana's external creditors are worried about China's reluctance to sign on to the debt restructuring program for the country. A group of countries known as the Paris Club are amongst the key donors to the Republic of Ghana. However, the ability to sign on to a debt relief program for the country to seek an IMF bailout is continuing to drag simply because the People's Republic of China is yet to join the creditor committee that will set in motion the external debt restructuring program that will allow Ghana to get some 3 billion bailout from the International Monetary Fund. French Foreign Affairs Minister Christola Zakharipolu has been on a state visit to Ghana, engaging President Akufo-Addo on some of these matters. She held a press conference indicating that China appears to be the key concern for many countries.
The economic situation of Ghana worries all of us, and the question of debt. It is treated by Club of Paris, but not only, also from the framework. So the 22 members of Paris Club discuss how we can help, how we can support the government of your country. And in this case, of course, we have to make the restructuration of debt, external debt, and I think the discussion with China and the role of China, it would be very, very important. So that's why I spoke to you about the importance of the common framework. But of course, we totally support and we will be beside you for the action that will have to be undertaken by the IMF and also the World Bank because the country needs to regain the economic stability.
And that's the position of the French government, indicating what's likely to happen to Ghana's external debt restructuring. Meanwhile, internally, business community is raising concerns about the new revenue measures passed by government to raise some revenue for the country. The government equally explains that the move will help the country secure that much-needed austerity plan with the International Monetary Fund. But, of course, the business community holding a press conference earlier today indicated that many companies will begin to fold up. In fact, the GUTA, which is the Ghana Union of Traders Association, has been holding joint talks with other business groups. And here's the president of GUTA, Joseph Obeng, addressing the press that the IMF's conditionalities may lead to many businesses folding up.
That there has not been any effort on the part of the government to engage the business community and seek their input. There has never been any effort to engage with us. These businesses are already overburdened with numerous taxes. Therefore, the implementation of these new taxes will lead to the collapse of businesses in the country. That, again, the taxes will have rippling and cascading effects on businesses and the consuming public as well. The government could have adopted a different strategy for enhancing revenue generation in the country as a better alternative to the IMF program rather than these obnoxious taxes. We do not believe the IMF seeks the destruction of businesses in the country. The government should not sacrifice the survival and development of the private sector for the sake of the IMF program. The efforts of the IMF to support our national economy will amount to nothing if it ends up destroying local businesses. The government can enhance domestic revenue mobilization by adopting innovative and practicable measures. We of the business community are very much in the know that the taxes we pay to the government are sufficient enough. But what the government fails to do is to adopt an effective and pragmatic system to ensure compliance with tax payment, as well as rope in all other businesses, entities that have not been captured into the tax net. In fact, there are many leakages in the tax system which lead to abuses and need to be sealed to forestall tax evasion and other related abuses. For example, the abuses of the warehousing and free zone policies should be thoroughly examined and strictly checked. The tax exemption policy should be totally abolished. This will go a long way to save significant revenue for the national development.
Fortunately, the president of the Ghana Union of Traders, Dr. Joseph Obeng, is joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. I'll start off with the claims you've been making as the business community. You claim that the IMF conditionalities are beginning to adversely affect businesses locally. But the government explains that it is crucial to our economic restoration. How do we juxtapose these 2 points?
Hello.
Hi, Doc. Welcome.
Yes.
So
Yes, I'm sorry, my phone is
right.
acting up.
I was just asking the question that, of course, you claim that the IMF conditionalities appear to be affecting businesses, and that these new revenue measures may lead to a potential collapse of your companies. But government says that the IMF program is crucial to our economic recovery. How do we juxtapose the 2 points?
Yeah, we agree with government that is indeed very important that we adopt the IMF program. There's no doubt about that, and we are not arguing around that. What we are saying is that, please, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, yes.
We could have adopted a different measure apart from these measures that government took to enhance on government revenue. Seriously, this one is going to collapse businesses. And that's what we are talking about. And we are saying that we could have sat down with government and prefer a better, even better solution. And we all brought consensus around it, and we all deploy that together. But as it were now, the taxes act is being handed over to the business community. Is going to kill us. It's as simple as that. So we are in the same page with government. We know that we are in crisis and that we need solutions. But we also think that we cannot go to IMF and then we see to the destruction of our local industries, farming, agro-based industries, trading, and all that. And that's why all the business community have come together to protest and say that no, enough is enough. And we all recognize the fact that we are overburdened with taxes. Government itself recognizes this. That's why in 2017, government removed what they called nuisance taxes. Now these nuisance taxes have come in different forms, and it's even more than it used to be. What does it tell you?
Yeah,
we can't go ahead like that.
Right, but Doc, permit me. You're simply doing business. Of course, you're in the business community. You make profits or you either make losses. This is the case that the taxes, as you're claiming, may affect your production or perhaps the profit margin. Why not add on simply and make your profits and quote and unquote go away?
It's not that simple.
Doc, we appear to be, yes. If you can just take that point for us again.
Consumer is already overburdened. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, I'm with you, Doc.
The consuming public is already overburdened. Their purchasing power has been curtailed because of the inflation. And so sometimes it's difficult to even pad up to the consumer. What it means is that the consumer is unable to buy if you keep piling these prices. The inflation that you're experiencing now is as a result of cost accumulation. We are piling up cost onto the final product. And because of the taxes that we are talking about. And so it's not as a result of excess liquidity in the system. So how far and how long can the consuming public absorb this cost? They cannot. And so when you do that, you are unable to turn over your business. And when your turnover is curtailed, it means that you are unable to service your loans and then service your supplier's credit, and that your business is collapsed. So it's not that simple that we pass it on. In any case, is the government not sympathetic with the consuming public as well? That we should continue to compound their problem. That will not be fair. And that's why we're saying that we could have preferred a different alternative. And IMF itself does not seek that businesses collapse. And so we could have bargained better for this rather than these measures that we call obnoxious. The obnoxious that we are going to pay multiplicity of taxes. That whatever communications industry is going to charge 5% on their gross. Whatever the insurance companies are going to pay on their gross, whatever the banking industry is going to pay on their gross, the shipping line is going to pay on their gross, is going to be transferred to us. It's not going to be absorbed by these companies. And we ourselves we also have 2.5% on our gross to pay. How far can we go? This is too much. This is obnoxious. That we have to do something about it. That's why we are calling on the government. We did not have stakeholder engagement on this. And that the norm had been that when there's a new tax, we all evaluate and dissect and we build consensus, and then we all eat together, and then we give the backing to government. But this particular one was not done, and it is not fair to the generality of Ghanaians. And we are even disappointed that Parliament, with all the petitions that we sent to Parliament, the Speaker, and all that, they do not consider and pass it on. They do not represent their own interest. They represent the people of Ghana. We are not, the democracy that we are practicing here is not democracy of imposition, that we impose things on people, and that we dialogue, we build consensus, and we listen to the masses of the people. And that's why we are feeling disappointed. There isn't an iota of respect for the business community who have protested, and they couldn't simply hold on and talk to us so that we also prefer our alternative solutions. And this is what we are seeking now from the president. We know he's a listening president. We have had the opportunity so many times to talk to the president, and we believe that he is going to open the doors once again for us, so that when we are able to discuss and build consensus, we all, whatever program that we put to bear together, whatever taxes that we all agree together. Already the taxes that we are paying is not bad at all. We've been getting our revenue target all this year. Because of what? Because we are able to meet our taxes with the business community. And the preceding years also saw that. Now we are uncompetitive in the sub-region, as you may know. Now the Tama port is empty. Why is it empty? Because cost of doing business is very high. And we are not in competition with ourselves. Tama port is not competition with itself. Tama port is in competition with the rest of the other ports. In the left is Cote d'Ivoire, on the right is Togo. And they are in competition with that. And we are losing attractiveness to these corridors. And it's not interesting. And we should know the signs are so clear. So why should we go on and pile on this cost on doing business to stop the progress or otherwise of businesses?
All right, then. Dr. Obeng, just hold on for us, because Mark Boache, who is the CEO of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, is also joining the conversation. And you were at the press conference also today. You've heard from Dr. Joseph Obeng indicate what the position of GUTA is, and jointly you all associate with this. But what's the way forward, and what demands are you making from government?
Well, I don't think it's a position of GUTA. It's a position of all relevant business associations in Ghana. So the statement was not made by GUTA, but all of us, we put it together because we realized that these new taxes affect every sector and every business in Ghana. So we came together, and we know that with a very strong voice, the government will listen to us. From here, what we are going to do is to send a petition to the president. The president knows the importance of business and the importance of private sector to the development of Ghana. In other jurisdictions, you cannot introduce a tax without consulting the business community. You cannot, because we won't pay. So we have made it clear through this press statement that we are not happy with the passage of the bill, and as such is going to affect us. Now that it's been passed, we know the next step is for the president to assent, and then it becomes a law for us, all of us to obey. So we are knocking at the doors of the president. We are sending a petition to him that these taxes will not be in the interest of businesses and will not be in the interest of Ghana. So they should listen to us. We have better options, better suggestions, better recommendations, that we may not even need this 4 billion that they are seeking to get from these taxes. We can get it from other sources within the economy that will not overburden businesses, and we are ready to engage government. We are ready to offer our suggestions to ensure that the government gets the revenue and we will not introduce taxes that will kill businesses. We don't have to kill businesses to get 4 billion, because in the end, if you want to bring the businesses back, you need more than the 4 billion cedis that you are seeking to get from these obnoxious and counterproductive taxes that are being introduced by the Ministry of Finance and the government of Ghana. That won't help us. So we are going to push. We know that once the petition is given to the president, he has had the cause to call us for several discussions on some of these issues. In 2022, when the economy was on its knees, it actually required the businesses of this country to bring it back. The president called us, all business associations. He asked us what is the way forward. We offered suggestions, and now we begin to see some improvement. Now that we need money from IMF, the IMF shouldn't come, and I don't think, as he said, IMF will be happy that $3 billion dollars from IMF will come and collapse the businesses in Ghana. Who is going to pay the tax? Who is going to employ the people? Those that are coming out for investors, who is going to employ them? It's a business. It's the money that IMF is giving to you. It is to support your balance of payment. It's not supposed to help you build your productive sector. It is the private sector, the individuals that are going to get the money to invest in the businesses. From what is going on, even attracting investment into Ghana is going to be difficult. Anybody who would want to invest will look at your tax structure, you look at the cost of doing business, you look at the capacity and the capability of your people to contribute to whatever is going to do. If your tax structure is like this, where you are taxing everything that goes to the businesses, you are taxing me 5% of my gross profit, and after that you go and tax corporate tax, bring a VAT of almost 22%. What are we doing to ourselves?
Okay, but
are we really interested
let's be practical. Let's be practical here. What's the alternative? It's not just about saying, well, the revenue measures are not helpful. Government is also looking at how to raise more revenue. So if it's not from the business community, where should we be getting that money from?
One, the alternative here is not about introducing new taxes or increasing the rate of existing taxes. The alternative here is compliance and tax efficiency. If you increase compliance, look, over 13 million people in Ghana are supposed to be paying tax. Less than 5 million of us are paying. So assuming that all the 13 million are paying, we have broadened the tax net, and every business, every individual will be paying a minimum amount, and the effect will not be on the few people who are there and they are not getting the money. So we are saying that there is also tax exemption, huge tax exemption. Who are those getting the tax exemptions? Are there not those who are politically exposed that are getting the tax exemptions? Have you seen the typical SME getting tax exemptions? Let's block those loopholes, the warehouse system, all these things are there, the leakages. And no, the IMF said that you have two ways: enhance your revenue and also check on your expenditure. There is over concentration on enhancing the revenue and piling all these taxes on the businesses. Has government checked its expenditure? We've said this over and over again. The corruption, the leakages, we have said it over and over again. Block them. And once you control your expenditure, you don't need all this huge, because you want to ensure that your debt is sustainable. You need either revenue or you have to reduce your expenditure. Right. That you are saying that you cut your clothes according to the size of your pot. You are not tightening your belt, and you want the business to tighten their belt to the extent that they die. Cut your expenditure, come to us and say that I have done ABCD. If you ask that the no V8 is going out of Accra, who is monitoring that? Who is monitoring that? To what extent has that translated into a reduction in expenditure? That you want to get a lot of revenue from businesses to kill them. It won't help. The two ways, let's look at them. Tax compliance is key. In fact, all research have shown that if you want people to comply with your tax, you don't increase the tax rate or you don't introduce new taxes. Businesses will always find a way out, and the revenue that you are seeking to get, you won't get. If you want the revenue, make it simple, make it affordable for people to pay that. How come in US, a business will walk into their revenue center and say, I'm coming to file my tax? Here, if you go and introduce yourself, the pressure that they will build on you, you are likely to collapse your business. Make it simple. And I believe that businesses are not against the payment of taxes. And I've said this several times. We know that government need money. We know that government will have to build roads and schools and other things. But taxes that will kill businesses. People have invested in their businesses, millions of dollars, and you are going to use taxes to kill them. Those who have invested, they invested not because they just want to employ people. They invested not because they are Father Christmas. They invested because they always also want revenue and create value for their shareholders.
All right.
So don't kill their businesses.
I want us to make progress now. And of course, let's wrap up on this call. Dr. Obeng, I'll start off with you. The potential impact on your members and possibly the layoffs that we're about to see. Have you started quantifying that?
Yeah, it is very obvious. I don't have the scientific basis to quantify it. But once the lamentation at the stores keep on saying, Yantadia, they are not buying from us and all that, should tell you that if you keep on increasing the taxes, then this lamentation will even go on to the extent that we will say that that's when businesses have collapsed eventually. If now duties have gone up, the benchmark values have been taken out of the table. Now we have to contend with over 35% increment of duties. A VAT from 3% have gone to 22%, the flat rate, the standard rate. And these are all compounding the problem. The interest that we pay for our loans is 40%. Why are we going to get the money to pay our interest when we are also again being made to pay extortive taxes? Let's be fair. Let's be considerate. Let's put it on the scale and weigh it and see that what we are doing is fair. IMF itself doesn't want to kill businesses, and that we have to go back to the table and discuss proper alternatives. And this all that we are talking about, we are not fighting with anybody. We are just making sense that we have to open up again, build the necessary consensus, and prefer a better alternative. Otherwise, businesses are collapsed. More businesses died or have their capitals halved. The last quarter of 2022, all businesses' capital were depleted by 52%. If you want to know the statistics, and that accounts the reason why the thermal port is also half empty. Because if you are able to buy 20 containers, now you will only be able to buy about 5 containers. Businesses are dying. We don't need rocket science to tell everybody that the businesses are dying. Even the symptoms or signals at the thermal port alone should be an indicative point that businesses are actually dying, that we could not do the volumes that we are able to do, both trading and the manufacturing. Manufacturers are the worst of the manufacturers. They are very irrelevant in the scheme of affairs of the continental free trade area, that we have the edifice of a secretariat here, modern secretariat, but we are not having any benefit. We are irrelevant. We are lost out of the affairs of the continental free trade. So what are we doing?
Okay.
Yes, because their prices are high. Ask them after the implementation of the continental free trade area 3 years ago. Ask Ghana the number of containers that we've shipped to the neighboring countries. Nothing. And other countries are selling. It's because the cost of doing business is high. The manufacturers cannot produce at a competitive prices.
All right. And for you, Makabuaji, as we wrap up on this conversation, what will be that final message to those in authority and probably to Parliament? They are on recess now. I'm just wondering what options are available now.
Well, as for Parliament, I know they have done their work. As I said, now the onus lies with the President to sign, and then it becomes law. That's what we are knocking at the doors of the President. My letter advice is that just as other countries are doing, just as they are using their monetary policies and fiscal policies to incentivize the productive sector because they know it's the engine of growth, Ghana should not deviate from that. We should not use fiscal policy in terms of taxes to kill businesses. We should not use monetary policy in terms of the policy rate to also increase the interest rate and kill businesses. How can you have an economy with a monetary policy rate of 29.5 and lending rate of 40 to 50%, and you expect that businesses will do well? Other countries are doing it. Let's use these policies to strengthen the private sector. That's exactly what we are saying. We are here to support government to achieve its overall goal of creating jobs, of creating revenue, and also helping the economy to grow. That is what the businesses are here to do. And we support government to achieve that. If the government also created the right enabling environment, businesses will take advantage of that and move the economy forward.
I'm grateful. Mark Video Abuaji, CEO of the Ghana National Chamber of Industries, joining us here, and also to Dr. Joseph Obeng of GUTA for joining us on this conversation. You're watching The Pulse, and it's time now to talk about education, because the Ghana TVET services, it is seeking to change the narrative about how technical and vocational skills for a long time have been neglected here in the country. As part of the reforms, there's a new legislation that will give power to this institution to equip and improve TVET service across the country. There's more here for you.
The President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has made TVET a centerpiece of his education transformation agenda. TVET is a means to an end, not an end in itself. By that I mean that we look at TVET as realigning education and economic development.
That is where the NPP government approved a 5-year strategic plan for TVET in 2018. That 5-year strategic plan has 5 policy objectives. It has the governance and management of TVET. It had quality of TVET. It had access to TVET, sustainable funding to TVET. Then, of course, it had sustainability, environmental sustainability of TVET.
The TVET systems or TVET education was highly fragmented and well separated from the normal formal education. You could realize that people couldn't even recognize there was technical education sector in the Ministry of Education.
Government has passed 2 major laws. Act 1023 is the Education Regulatory Bodies Act. Then we also have Act 1049, which established the TVET service, that is to look at the TVET delivery of public TVET institutions at the pre-tertiary level.
For education to play its rightful role in economic development, you have to make education relevant to the needs of the economy. There's no other subsector in the education field where this relevance can easily be established than in the field of TVET. So to begin with, the President directed that all ministries that are doing some kind of TVET will have to give up. So if you look at MVTI, it used to be part of the Ministry of Labor and Employment Relations. All their schools are now at the Ministry of Education. About over 100 schools, getting close to 200, have been brought to the Ministry of Education as a result of this transformation.
For somebody who sits in the private sector, I'm very excited about the TVET reform. The TVET reforms brings to bear, the relevance of competency-based training.
And the President said that the only way to reduce youth unemployment and to prevent or reduce poverty is through TVET. And to make the Ghana Beyond Aid agenda a reality as TVET, we have finished, facelifted, retooled a number of technical institutes at the second cycle level and also at the tertiary level, that is the technical universities.
Well, so let's expand the conversation about how TVET can be improved across the country. We're fortunate to be joined now by Mausi Nudekoa-Witi. She's the Director General for the Ghana TVET service, joining us in studio. Thank you for your time here on The Pulse. We know that the Ghana Education Service recently released a statement indicating to us that a significant portion of the admissions that are being made this year will find some of these prospective students find their way into TVET schools. How are you readying yourself as its service just for this new intake that is coming on board, and what plans do you have for them?
Okay, thank you very much. Already we have the people on board, we have the trainees on board. This year, so far, we have enrolled over 47,000 new students who have come on board, as compared to last year was equally about 47,000. And this year, our target is to have 50,000. And we are very hopeful that by next week, next 2 weeks, we'd have hit that 50,000. Now, we, you know, the TVET schools have all been put together now under one agency. Initially, we had OIC, NVTI, and ISIS. They were under the Ministry of Employment and Labor Relations. Okay. And then we had some of the TVET schools under Ghana Education Service. And then we had the social welfare schools. They were under Ministry of Gender. Right. And then we had the community development schools under local government. Then we had the farm institutes, and they had the youth leadership training schools that were under. So the energies were scattered and dotted all across. They were, you see. And there wasn't any standardization. People were their own curriculum. And so all have been brought together now under the Ghana TVET service. And now the free TVET has been rolled out. Initially, it was only the TVET schools that were under the Ghana Education Service that were benefiting from the free. Yes. So now all of them now are benefiting, and that is what it's seeing. A lot of people now go into choosing TVET schools. Initially, some years back, you would get people who would want to go to the TVET schools where people who do not perform very well at the BC level. But this year, I tell you, some people have a grade 7 choosing TVET school as their first choice. Because the long-held perception has been that, well, people who are not academically quote-unquote smart are the ones who find themselves in the TVET schools. You say that narrative is changing. It is changing because the way to go for this country to develop has to be TVET. It's TVET that has made these developed countries that we see our people, everybody wanting to go there. I mean, it is TVET that made them develop. And so Ghana has also realized, and this government has realized that TVET is the only way to go. TVET is the one that is going to create employment for the youth who find themselves unemployed. There's a lot of business in this country. I mean, the construction, and when you go to the construction industry, even everything you see in the studio here is TVET. Now, all these things are imported. And when it comes to the expertise, some years back, if like you see a road being constructed, you see that there's an expatriate also there in charge, because they are very good at that. Now, Ghana has realized that, look, let us invest. If we really want this country to develop, then the way to go is TVET. That is why this government has spent a lot of money. The previous government also did, but this government has spent a lot more money in modernizing the schools. Now, the former NVTI schools, the 34 NVTI schools, all have been modernized. They've built extra classrooms, labs, IT labs, and the workshops with modern equipment. And a lot more are being built. And we are looking at eventually maybe building some TVET incubators. We don't have any TVET incubators in this country. The sub-region has not. Ghana is looking at that and want to create that kind of hub that people from, even if not the whole of Africa, but West Africa, people want to come here and build their capacity and get people become good TVETans, because God is the first TVETan. And you agree that infrastructure has always been a challenge. These schools that you say you are, is it renovating or giving them a complete facelift? How many of them for now have you dealt with? And are you having some more targets to either construct new ones or to create more? In fact, the 34 NVTI, former NVTI schools, all of them have been modernized. You've modernized all of them. All of them. We are the project was about over 112 million euros. that went into that. When you visit any old NVTI school, you will see that the story is not the same, and more are being done. We're looking at workshops. I mean, having modern workshops, and you know what? Now we are introducing the dual TVET. It means that a lot more hands-on. We're looking at having 70% training, hands-on practicals, and 30% theory. So now the TVET service is collaborating with industries. The one district, one factory are SAM, and then the other old existing factories are going to take on our students, and we are going to pilot it so that they would have real hands-on training, and as compared to at first that we were doing more of grammar TVET, this time it's more of practicality. TVET, yeah.
I want to, of course, relate what's happening now in the conversation we're having to Ghana's current economic predicament. We're not doing so well in terms of our economy, and part of the assessment is that if we had revamped our TVET education, or if we had more hands-on practical and people who can go out to create their own businesses, we wouldn't have found ourselves in this situation. How are you hoping to contribute your quota towards Ghana's economic recovery?
You know, we like I said, it is the modernization of the schools, one that is very paramount, and then the building of the capacity of the instructors. Now, a lot of capacity building workshops are being organized for the instructors, and compulsorily they go on attachment. All instructors have to go on attachment. During the holidays, they don't sit doing nothing, but then they go and learn new things to come and teach the students. TVET is all about expanding cottage industries. Right. Cottage industrialization is the way to go, and that is what TVET service is looking at. So currently, what TVET service is doing is that the final year students, some of them are supported with some tools, some basic tools. So when they leave school, those who don't want to progress, because some want to go to the university. Right. Years back, it was difficult to complete a TVET school at the pre-tertiary level and then go to the university. Now the qualification framework is in place. After the 3-year training in a TVET school, you continue to a tertiary institution to do the HND, the first degree, the second degree, all the way to the PhD level, so that people should not think that, look, I finished school with my brother, but my brother has been able to go to the university to do the master's and do the PhD. The TVET person too has it there. And then those who don't want to, because it's not everybody who would want to go the academic way, but want to set up his or her own small cottage in some industry somewhere. Every community must have this thing. So we are even encouraging our students and helping them to form cooperatives, that after school they come together as cooperatives and
form their own company. So
yes,
they can
absolutely. Okay.
Do you have a target, maybe a number of the students that you're targeting, to give them, first of all, the equipment, and there'll be the issue of capital because they need to start up their businesses? Are you giving them startups, something to start, something small to start their business? This is not going to be the first time. This is going to be the beginning. Some of the TVET agencies, for instance, NVT at that time when it was in existence, and I was the executive director, that was what we were doing. But we're targeting mostly the females that that had pursued the male-dominated vocations. Okay. It's a way of, putting some intervention to encourage young women to go into the male-dominated vocations, because that is where females don't find themselves in. But when they get there, they do very, very well. So we are going to scale up. We have actually sent proposals to development partners, and we are having discussions on that. Okay, job creation should be a part of the package. How are you translating what's happening in the TVET sector to job creation? Because a lot of the youth out there do not have jobs. Do you have a plan for that?
Okay, now what TVET service, what our schools are doing, and it's not only in the public schools, in the private schools, the private TVET schools as well. What we're doing is that we have training programs for even students who are in the universities, that during the holidays they go learn a trade. These short courses, these proficiency courses that they learn, maybe beading, maybe tiling, or visual arts or something of that sort. That when they finish school, then they can practice that alone. And we believe, TVET service believes that it's about livelihoods and markets. Letting them have access to the training is one. Now, helping to set them up is another. And then linking them to the markets.
Yeah, it's another part of the
Yes, it's also part. So we have a whole directorate or division that is responsible for that. And TVET service, as you know, is very new. It's less than 2 years old. So these are many of the plans that we intend to roll out.
And finally, I'll ask the question about the new TVET schools that government is planning to build. Some have criticized the policy, saying that there would rather be a need for you to channel that resource into the pre-existing TVET schools that we have spread across the country. What's informing the decision, for instance, to construct more or new TVET schools aside what we have already?
We need a lot of TVET schools in this country. When you compare the number of TVET schools we have, compare them with the grammar schools we have, it's just about one-fifth. The TVET schools are not many at all. If we want this country to be developed, we have to look at TVET. That is the reason why we are building more, and then we are modernizing the old ones. When it takes the ISS schools, for instance, many of them were community-based, and that is one area that government is looking at the right time. All the ISS schools would be modernized like the way the former MVTI schools were, and we need more. In fact, this country should have over 500, 600 to 1,000, even 1,000 TVET schools dotted around the country.
We're wrapping up. There are parents watching us, some who are hesitant in allowing their children to opt for TVET courses. I'm sure that you've encountered some of these situations. What would you say to a parent out there or a student who's considering, or otherwise, whether or not to opt for TVET?
I always tell people that if you want poverty to leave your family, the best way to go is to get into that space. Send your children to a TVET school. You hardly come across a TVET product. Someone who attended a TVET school and then sits home doing nothing. Dressmaking, tiling, and all this is TVET. So I'm encouraging parents that, look, TVET should not be the last option. Interestingly enough, this year, we had parents, we had ministers and CEOs and things sending their children to TVET schools. Some years back, it wasn't so. If a minister is even sending his child to a TVET school, then the farmer, if you don't want poverty to remain in your family, get your children in TVET school, and that's the way to go.
Elsie, thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. And indeed, we'll see you again.
Yeah, I would
definitely.
Love to come back again and then speak on many other issues.
Indeed, we're grateful for your time. And you're watching The Pulse. When we return, we'll talk about some steps the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is taking to sanitize the public system. Please stay. And just weeks after the opposition National Democratic Congress raised concerns about President Akufo-Addo's delivery of the State of the Nation address, calling out the president for some issues they claim were not factual, the New Patriotic Party is back today with a response. The chairperson of the party, Stephen Intim, has been addressing a press conference indicating that the opposition party is on a campaign of misinformation. He's also been defending the track record of the governing New Patriotic Party.
Ghana's economy was the toast of the world until COVID-19. Before 2020, Ghana was hailed among the fastest growing economies in the world. But COVID-19 disrupted the growth momentum of the economy, and later the Russian-Ukraine war also came on board. As a result of these factors, our economy, which was among the fastest growing economies in the world, started to accelerate in 2020, and the government has committed everything in its toolkit to regenerate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the ravaging impact of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war on the global economy are visible all around us. But somehow, the NDC has refused to acknowledge nor admit this fact, to continue misinforming Ghanaians that this government has mismanaged our economy. So, the NDC's press conference was merely a repetition of their denial of the impact of COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war on the economy. The NDC hopes that by consistently propagating this blatant misinformation, it will get enough Ghanaians to come to believe it. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm concerned about this deliberate misinformation campaign by the NDC to deny the impact of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war on Ghana's economy. And many others are concerned about increasing taxes. These real bread and butter issues made it difficult for anyone to believe it is not the government's fault that we are going through these hard times. This is the opportunity the NDC seeks to exploit, to weaponize the hardships caused by these external factors to make the government more unpopular. Can you imagine rationing pepper in Ghana? The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, confirmed the impact of COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukraine war on the United States economy, and how difficult the effort to rebuild the economy has been, even for the United States. Kenya, one of the most dynamic economies in East Africa, has recently run out of US dollars. Most fuel and oil importers claim, in Kenya, claim they cannot import the product because they do not have foreign currency. This has led to widespread fuel shortages in major towns and cities in Kenya. The NDC chairman was shouting and holding Ivory Coast as a standard Ghana should aspire to become. Can you believe this? The NDC deliberately misrepresented the economic situation in the Ivory Coast by suggesting all is well with our Western neighbors, that is the Ivory Coast. In actual fact, the Ivory Coast, they were advertising as negotiating at the time with the IMF to obtain a $2.6 billion in a blended extended credit facility. As it turned out, the NDC as a party are not just incompetent managers of Ghana's economy, but also incompetent researchers. They should have known this. They should have known this about this Ivory Coast negotiated deal just 5 days prior to their press conference. It was obvious. Please share this link with Chairman Asidun Ketia on or his communicators to read about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war on the Ivorian economy as it has had on Ghana's.
And from the governing New Patriotic Party, let's focus on the NDC, because 5 out of some 6 aspiring members for the parliamentary slot of the NDC within the Ahafo constituency and areas have been vetted. We have more in this report detailing some of the exercises and processes that the aspirants went through.
In all, 11 parliamentary aspirants in 5 out of the 6 constituencies in the Ahafo region have gone through the vetting process in Goso to stand on the ticket of the NDC in the upcoming 2024 elections. There were no female aspirants in the near peaceful vetting process so far in a region where the NDC has only 2 parliamentary seats and will be aiming at increasing their numbers. While incumbent Collins Dada of Asutifi South is going unopposed upon Frimpong filed to challenge the incumbent Eric Opoku for the Sunafo South seat. But that appears a tall order as Mr. Frimpong, the former district chief executive for Sunafo South, is alleged to have been disqualified over 25 alleged forged signatures on his nomination form. Niboy is the Sunafo South Constituency Elections Director.
Honorable Frimpong, former DC for Sunafo South. So after he has submitted his forms, then we have to go through. At first, we are having their branch executive forms. So we have to compare the signatures on the branch executive forms as compared to that of his nomination forms. So after the comparison, we saw that he had forged some of people's signatories. Then we petitioned the vetting committee to consider those things. And after the vetting, they made a decision that he had forged people's signatories, and that's against the rules. So they have ruled him out of the game. So totally 25 forged and 13 impersonation of signatories.
Meanwhile, the incumbent MP, Eric Opoku, expressed his confidence in being retained by the delegates, adding that his preoccupation now is creating jobs for the youth in the Sunafo South.
You know, I'm a member of the appointment committee. I have vetted almost all the ministers in this country, and so I'm used to the process. And it was just normal. I must say that I am a human being. I cannot deliver to the admiration of everybody. When it comes to development, I'm able to lobby and get a lot of development projects for my constituents. In fact, the critical issue that confronts my constituency and which I'm praying to fix after the return of NDC into power is job creation. We have contributed towards the education of many young guys in the constituency. What they want now is job. And so my major preoccupation is how I can secure job for the teeming youth who have dedicated themselves towards my cause and the cause of the NDC for all these years. But when it comes to projects, when it comes to development, I think that I have made a huge impact in the constituency.
The party is expected to make a decision soon on Tano North. Precious Semevo, Joy News, Goso.
Back in Accra, residents of Teshi Mobile are complaining about stalled road projects, which is increasingly becoming the predicament of the area. Of course, gutters that were constructed before the road project started have never been replaced, resulting in flooding in the area. Jacqueline and Zuma Yaboa was in the community and now reports.
Currently, I am at a suburb in Teshi, popularly known as Mobile. Now, residents here are faced with challenges such as flooding anytime it rains.
The problem is that the flood, because of the gutter, is not too large. There are small gutters. When the rain falls, it's very hard the rain to overflow in the gutter. That is causing all this problem for here, making fraud in all this. Down there, if you go down, you see the problem. The fraud for all the people, their rooms, everything. Because of they are putting the doors in dustbin in the boiler in this thing gutter.
Too much flooded because of the contractor. He do the road. They do it and they reach here and they stop around here. So when the waters come out, it's too much flooded here. They destroyed the gutter. Now you see the gutter is choked.
So initially there was a gutter here, but it has been destroyed.
Yes, there is a gutter here. And their cars is passing and it broke the gutters. They do it here, they reach here and they stop. They live in front of us. When it is raining, the rain comes into our store and all over here. So we can't do anything here.
So the rains this morning, when it rained, it came into your shop?
Yes. So we find some shovel and we take it out all the small sands before it get a little bit chance so that to go.
So when did this issue start? How long has it been?
When they started construct the road.
When was that? Around what time?
Oh, last year. Last year it keeps wrong. They know. We asked them they should help us to do this little one. They thought we should go and see the government before they can do it because their money is finished. So they left it.
Anytime it rains, we suffer because the stalled road construction has caused blockage in the gutters. My children and I had to scoop out water from the shop this morning after it rained. You can see that the water that entered the shop has spoiled some of my goods. It's the same for those who stay by the roadside. Those in cars cannot alight and get proper place to stand. There are times when it rains heavily and children cannot walk through the water. They have to be carried. I'm pleading that the road be fixed, or else it will be disastrous during a heavy downpour. The vendors and those who stay by the roads are really suffering. Since they halted the construction on the roads, no one has been here to observe how the situation is like when it rains.
Just as you heard from the residents of Teshi Mobile, now anytime it rains, they find it very difficult. With these narrow gutters in here, the drainage system is very poor, limiting productivity, and drivers are finding it difficult to navigate. Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah reporting for Joy News.
And the matter of a 29-year-old man at Nagbanduri in the northern region is beginning to raise concerns that state security agencies are not ready to protect life and property. Residents say government would have to act fast. There's more in this report by Ilyas Utanko.
The Lovers Inn is one of the most popular drinking spots in Nagbanduri and a favorite meeting point for the youth of the town who come here to drink alcohol to get themselves busy as they have no jobs and livelihood opportunities. On the 25th of February, however, a petty scuffle broke out here, which subsequently led to the cold-blooded murder of a 29-year-old man. Suk Feyin Deep, the deceased, had just completed training as a community police assistant and was awaiting his posting. On the third day, the deceased and his uncle at the drinking spot got into a petty scuffle with two biological siblings, Yao Solomon and his junior brother Labik Titi. The scuffle was quickly resolved by the intervention of the owner of the drinking spot and some elders who advised them to leave the place. However, at about 4:30 p.m. after leaving the drinking spot, the two siblings armed themselves with machetes and a shotgun and attacked the deceased and his uncle at their house. The deceased was stabbed multiple times in his forehead, right chest and stomach. His uncle who was with him was also stabbed severally, but he survived after he was rushed to the hospital. Here is his horrific account of the tragedy.
So we came home here. This was the trouser I was wearing. So my bottom removed, and I removed the trouser. I was just sitting down here on the floor here. So I was to do my medicine. So immediately I hear they just open the gate. Pow! Today is today. You people, this is your end of the end of your day. We will kill you people. Sakoka removed knife, and the junior brother Tete, he also removed knife. And Sakoka pulled in his shirt like this, and he was showing me something. And it's just resemble like bulletproof. He told us that he's well protected. He don't fear gun, he don't fear knife. And my uncle was also trying to come out. Immediately, he's to come out, and the senior brother Sakoka come together with the knife to choke him, and he hold on with the knife and he throw him down. Immediately, he throw him down, and I was standing over there. Tete used his knife and come and choke my guy here. That was why I also ran and to hold Tete with fight. Tete was struggling to also kill me. So this is how it started. This is one, this is two. and this is 3. And the senior brother too get chance and choke the stomach. And as he choke him, I hear my guy scream, "Oh, he killed me!" So when I was coming, he pushed him like this and he fall. I see intestine was out.
The 2 siblings after the attack tried to get out of the town to hide, but the junior brother Labid Tete was arrested on the same day as he was fleeing to Sakogu. His accomplice senior brother was also arrested days later around Nalerugu. They have since been detained at the police station in the district capital Bumpurgu for nearly 2 months after the incident. The family of the deceased wants the police to speed up their investigation to ensure the prosecution of the culprits.
We lost a great son. We are not on our own minds. So what we want is this. We don't have weapons. We don't have anything to do because we want the authorities to work according to the law of the government. So they be prosecuted and jailed. When somebody moving from his house to attack the other and even destroy his life, then want peace. Government should intervene and then let us know the truth so that they can also be picked for life.
We now see that it is more or less delaying. So we are appealing to the Ghana Police Service to fast track things and then make sure that the case is taken to the High Court so that justice would be done. I must say that the family is not happy with the way the people are still at Bumpurgu police station.
The law is one. Murdering case is just to go for jail. And that is all. But we are not happy in a way because they've delayed them so much. I don't know what they wanted to interrogate or what finding they want to make again. And they are still keeping them at Bumpurgu. That one we are not happy.
The murder of the young man has left many in Nakpanduri in shock, but not surprised. According to the residents, since 2020, at least 6 people have been killed in similar manner, including a 64-year-old woman who was burnt alive in 2021. This latest incident, in addition to rampant robbery attacks, communal violence and smuggling of contrabands in the area, has however sparked concerns about poor security for the people living in the area. The Nakpanduri town used to have a police station with a huge police presence, but the station was shut down by Ghanaian authorities in the early 2000s over the activities of the notorious bandit leader Johnson Kombian and his gang. As part of measures to re-establish a permanent state security presence in the town, the district assembly started the construction of this police station. However, 2 years after its completion, the facility is yet to be put into use. Sources within the district assembly say the IGP is here to respond to multiple requests inviting him to come and commission the facility and deploy more men. The assemblyman of the area is pleading with the IGP to take steps to ensure equitable provision of security to all Ghanaians irrespective of their location.
Nakpanduri as a town lack security. The security nature here is also volatile because of the invisibility of police officers. We have written a letter to the top hierarchy to descend down to commission this police barracks. We are counting on them. Time is not on our side. We are almost into Easter, and our traders who commute here to Sankansi, they are always attacked during this period So if they could quickly do something to that effect, it will help actually solve a lot of problems.
Ilyas Sutanko reporting from Nakpanduri.
Well, DC for Nakpanduri has been speaking. He says that a number of steps are being taken to beef up police presence in the area.
According to the police commander, docket and everything was prepared and they are being processed in court. So what we did was to talk to the family to have a little bit patience whilst they allow the law to take for them to follow the due process to ensure that the justice is being done. This kind of let me say, malpractices or bad incident is as the result of this inadequacy visibility of the police. But what I've done is that there was a police station in Nampanduri which has been closed down for over 14 years now, but we've been able to renovate the police station. We've been able to furnish the police station, and we applied to the IGP, to the district police commander and regional police commander. Then instruction was given for the district police commander to inspect the project and submit an inspection report. And it was done because the police commander, together with my district coordinating director and the engineer, they did the inspection and the report has been duly submitted. So last week, my district police commander informed me that they will be sending us policemen to be stationed in Nampanduri now. And Minister for Interior has also given us an assurance that they will be giving us some number of FPU policemen. Some will be stationed in Nampanduri, others will go and augment the Bunkurugu team.
Thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Time now for Connect Africa. We're taking you to East Africa in Rwanda, to be precise, because President Paul Kagame says he's hoping to be retained as president after 22 years in office. He's been speaking to his counterpart, Kenyan President William Ruto, where he indicates that a succession plan is being drawn for the East African country. Head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, was there and joins us via Zoom now. Evans, let's start off from this statement that is being made by Paul Kagame. In what context is he making the statement?
It's very important to understand the context, because this is President Paul Kagame, who's been in office for 22 years, and today standing side by side with William Ruto. Then back of a question that he is looking forward to retiring as president of Rwanda. That for me was a surprise, even for the gentleman from Tanzania, a neighboring country, that asked the question about succession plan. Is there a succession plan to replace him? It was a big surprise to hear Paul Kagame make that point. And so that was the context of this. And there were many people who, in the last few days, been raising the question. This is a war-run country, clearly doing well economically. Everything else soon to be orderly. People are honestly doing their best to stay orderly and also to contribute their quota to the development of the country. But what happens after the strong leader, the strong man, the context of the question? And his answer was fascinating. He went straight for it, making the point that, listen, this is something that has come up before, and it is inevitable that he will leave, but it is also about growing people to succeed him, and that he doesn't want to appoint the person who comes after him, and that actually he's been having a conversation about who replaces him with his party. Watch.
On the transition part for the person in the president of Rwanda, is again another issue. I fully understand what you are talking about. It's an issue that has to be addressed sooner or later. I've had the opportunity to discuss it with my members of the party. that it is an inevitability that we have to find, first of all, grow leaders, and not for me to decide who is going to be the next leader after me. I think that also is not necessarily correct, but to create an environment, circumstances that will give rise to people who can lead, irrespective of whether I like them or not. Because I think you brought it up referring to democracy. You're talking about governance. You're talking about good governance. In good governance, I don't think you want everyone exiting to be the one to decide who comes after them. So let's put that aside. But the situation is being looked at.
Well, Evans, let's get some clarity on that. Is he looking forward to leaving office very soon?
He says he is. In fact, he says, guess what, Blazed, you'll be happy to hear this. He says he's looking forward to retiring and leaving office and handing over to a worthy successor and possibly become a journalist when he retires and join the Inky fraternity and just look back on his own career as a president of Rwanda.
That in fact, since 2010, we had this discussion within our party, within our country. But the circumstances also in Rwanda and the history and the challenges tend to dictate certain things that may not be very common with other situations. It's not the first time it has come up. Maybe it's not even going to be the last time, but life has to go on. So we have to live our lives and deal with these challenges. So I'm sure one day I may join journalism in my old age. So, and then we can talk about that past that involved me. I'm looking.
And here's Paul Kagame speaking side by side, one of the leaders of East Africa's biggest economy, Kenya. So let's talk about William Ruto as well. What's been his reaction?
His reaction was quite different from Paul Kagame. And the difference there was striking because you hear Paul Kagame talk about he is willing to step aside and let somebody else take over. He says we've been talking about it since 2010, and so this is something that has actively been discussed himself and his party to get somebody to replace him. He's willing to go even become a journalist and just retire in peace. And then you hear William Ruto, who comes from a very democratic country in many people's books in comparison with Rwanda. And his answer was, I want to quote him, I want to tell you that from our own experience in Kenya, trying to get a successor can be a very dangerous project because it may not be the person that people want. And I think that is an area that requires much more than identifying somebody and saying or telling the population this is the person. So for him, from the start, he doesn't think that is such a good idea. He doesn't think that is as simple as saying I want to go, because he says trying to find a successor is a dangerous project from the Kenyan example. I'm not quite sure which Kenyan example he was referring to, but he wasn't as open to the concept of starting a succession plan as Paul Kagame was. In fact, he went ahead to suggest that President Kagame has done a lot and is very commendable, and that he's provided sufficient mentorship to other people, and that what he's done for Rwanda, he almost deserves the right to appoint his successor. And then you hear Paul Kagame himself say, I don't want that, because he wants the process of appointing a successor to be democratic. You heard him talk about that. And so that was William Ruto's reaction to it, which I thought, I wonder what the Kenyans who, and there was a Kenyan journalist there, how they'll react to that, because he has his own problems back home. And he's been speaking about that too. You know, the opposition has been protesting against him because they believe the elections that saw him come to power last year. And again, I was in Kenya in the lead up to that, providing some help to the Kenyan press about coverage. Now he's facing a bit of a turmoil back home in Kenya. And then you hear him talking about succession somebody to succeed. An African president, it's a disastrous project because of the Kenyan example. I wonder how people will receive that back home in Kenya.
And how about the general public as well? How are they receiving this news?
Oh, this literally happened just about an hour ago. So I believe, news outlets are beginning to now file stories. So reaction has been impossible to gauge because this literally, I just rushed in to file this. Getting the files for you so people can hear him talk about this was more important. And I'm pretty sure going forward, as the news begin to filter, this is something I believe the international media outlets will pick up on, because the West is fixated with him, with the longevity he's had as the president. And each time questions arise about when are you going to leave office comes about, it excites the West. I'm pretty sure this will come to them as newsworthy. Then we'll get to possibly hear how the Rwandan population and public will receive this. And by the way, just a point to make a point here. If you listen to him, I've been part of the party's Congress and international conference. He makes the point that at the Congress, after he was appointed, he actually raised the question about secession himself. He said it, that without anybody asking him the question, after he was re-elected as a chairman of the RPF, just on Sunday evening, for another 4-year term, in his acceptance speech, he raised it himself in that speech. And I thought, he said that at this press conference, that he himself has been engaging this particular concept. I have put it to my party people. So the party supporters and the base of the party would have, at least on Sunday evening, had him address them on finding a successor for him. And I remember doing a story for my Joy Online yesterday, and including that quote in which he said, to paraphrase, that each time you give me another term, you are adding more responsibility. You are making the task even more difficult. And today when he said I talked about it, then I got the context he was referring to. In essence, it's time to really look for somebody to succeed me, which is what he's been talking about.
Yeah, but he's been retained now as the party's leader. So how is he receiving that as well?
Of course, he stood, obviously. So if he stood, then of course he believed he deserved another 5-year term. But just the point that he made just after he was sworn in, which is the point that I was stressing earlier, which comes back to how the people here have received this whole news, is you get a sense from him that this is something that, yes, I've received another 5-year term, but it's time. You heard him say it is inevitable now that in the next 5 years we need to have a good conversation about replacing me, letting me step aside, and getting somebody else in the process. I almost get a sense that he possibly put himself up again because he possibly feels that he hasn't found yet somebody who could replace him. And if you remember what he said at the beginning in his opening remarks when he was asked the question, his first reaction was that we need to find leaders. We need to find people who can replace me. Pardon me, just a bit of an interference from here. We need to find people who can replace him, and for him, that was an important point that he was stressing there. So I am almost of the view, just listening to him and reading in between the lines, that he possibly believes that the succession plan hasn't been finalized, as in finding leaders. He says, quoting, first of all, we need to grow leaders. not for me to decide, but who is the next leader. But we need to create the environment. So that's his role. His role is to create the environment and the circumstances that will give rise to people who can lead irrespective of who he likes. And I get a sense that he possibly suggesting there that for the time being, that person hasn't emerged yet.
And we're looking at all of this in the context of Africa. Paul Kagame himself is concerned about the African solutions to African problems. So he's been concerned about that as well. How do we situate all of that into this conversation?
And today, again, beside Ruto, he makes the point about the African project. And so he's really thinking way beyond Rwanda, the African project. And each question he was asked about the challenges that the East African community is facing. And there's a lot of conflict in the DRC, for example, that they are trying to deal with. And he was emphatic that the solutions to that particular problem has to be African first. He was not talking about Rwanda or Kenya, but has to be African first. And he makes the point that the rest of the world should not impose their solution, that what they should be doing is supporting the African solutions to African problems. And so for him, it is linking whatever success like the Rwanda is having to the entire continent. And that's is against that backdrop that we saw Ruto here. And Ruto himself makes the point that in the last 5 months since his election, he's found in Rwanda a strong partner. And he makes a point when he stood with Kagame that I thought was fascinating. Now, this is Kenya, a very advanced democracy, very wealthy, etc. Has had his own challenges with post-election violence, but largely it's a superpower in Africa. And yet, Ruto disclosed today that since he took power, he had to call Paul Kagame for Paul Kagame to give to Kenya the electronic platforms that manages the VAT, the value of the tax system. In other words, the Kenyan president was appealing to Paul Kagame, the Rwandan president, to give to Kenya your platform for managing VAT. And he says Kagame agreed. And as we speak, he says Kenya has been using the Rwandan platform to manage VAT, and they're seeing results as a result of that. And I found that fascinating. For a country of 30 million people, that's Rwanda's population, very small, to be the go-to country for a huge superpower like Kenya when it comes to managing taxes. It's quite fascinating to see.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here for now. Thanks for joining us. And that's Evan Smith, the head of our political desk here at JoyNews. And that's all we have for you in this package of the polls. I'm Lester Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com for updates. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.